Hello, and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. In today's lesson, we will be solving word problems involving ratios. Now, for the problems we're going to be doing today, we will be using proportions to solve. Let's jump in with example 1. Lorena is planning to serve appetizers at her wedding. She plans on offering 8 appetizers for every 3 people. If she has 240 people RSVP for the wedding, then how many appetizers will she serve? Set up a proportion and solve. So what we want to do is start with the ratio that they gave us. And in this problem, the ratio was 8 appetizers, and I'll just abbreviate appetizers, for every 3 people. And what we want to find out is if she has 240 people attend the wedding, how many appetizers will she need? So noticing my first ratio, appetizers is in the numerator. So I do not know the number of appetizers, but I do know the number of people is 240. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to look to see what did I scale by, what did I multiply 3 by to get to 240? If you're not sure, just come over and do a little bit of long division here. 3 goes into 240. 3 goes into 24. 8 times, 3 goes into 0, 0 times. So this is telling us that we need to scale by 80. So if I scale the denominator by 80, I'm going to need to also scale the numerator by 80. So 80 times 8 would be 640. So she will need 640 appetizers. Now, in our first example, we were given a situation with the ratio was given to us in words. In some problems that you solve, the ratios will be given to you in table form. So let's look at example 2. Marcus charges an hourly rate for repairing computers. The table shows the amount Marcus charged for different number of hours he worked. Based on the data in the table, what is the value of X, the amount Marcus earned? The amount Marcus would charge for a computer repair that takes 9 hours. So in the table, we see 3 different ratios. For 3 hours, he earned $67.50. For 4.5 hours, he earned $101.25. For 5 hours, $112.50. We want to know how much would he earn for 9 hours. So I can use any ratio I want as my first ratio. But you want to work smarter, not harder. Because I'm trying to determine how much he would charge for working 9 hours, I want to pick a ratio that's easy to scale the hours to 9. And it's for that reason I'm going to use that first ratio. Okay? So I don't even really need a proportion to solve this one because I can use the table and scale 3 to 9. I would be scaling by 3. So to find X, I would just need to multiply that $67.50 times 3, and that would find X. So I'm going to take $67.50. I'll scale it or multiply it by 3. So that'd be 15, carry the 1, 21, 22, carry the 2, 18, 19, 20. So he would, if I move my decimal in 2 places, because there were 2 numbers after the decimal, that tells me that Marcus would charge $202.50 for 9 hours of work. All right, example 3. The table shows the amount of sugar Katie mixes with each amount of water she puts in her hummingbird feeder. Based on the information in the table, how many cups of sugar should Katie mix with 12 cups of water? So in this table, they did not put the 12 in, but I can add it. Since it's water, I want to put it on the right side, and I can make another entry here in my table. And I can use scaling to find the missing amount of sugar. How much sugar does she need if she uses 12 cups of water? Now, when you're scaling, you want to pick a number, a water amount that is easy to scale to 12. So I would either use the 1/2 cup of sugar to 2 cups of water, or the 3/4 cup of sugar to 3 cups of water. Now, when I have a choice between two ratios to use, I always use a smaller one because the numbers will be smaller and easier to work with. So I'm going to use this ratio here to solve the problem. So what we want to do, excuse me, is see what would I need to do to scale from 2 to 12. Well, hopefully you said multiply it by 6. So if I multiply the 2 cups of water by 6, I must also multiply the 1/2 cup of sugar. Excuse me, why did I write down 2? I meant to write down 6. Let me erase that. Times 6. So I'm going to take 6 and multiply it by 1/2. So 6 times 1/2 is the same thing as 6 divided by 2, which gives me 3. So this tells me she'll need 3 cups of sugar for 12 cups of water. Example 4. There are 63 dogs at a show. The ratio of number of large dogs to small dogs is 4 to 3. How many dogs at the show are small dogs? Now, this problem's a little different because in this problem, our ratio needs to deal with the total number of dogs. So let me highlight how many dogs there were at the show. Now, I'm going to make a quick little table. We are comparing the ratio of the number of large dogs to small dogs to total. And we know the ratio of the number of large dogs to small dogs was 4 to 3. So that total would be 7. Now, the question says, if there are 63 dogs at a dog show, then how many of the dogs are small dogs? So I want to put that 63 for the total. Then I would ask myself, what do I need to scale by? So hopefully you said 7 times 9 is 63, which means I would have to scale the 4 times 9, which is 36, and the 3 times 9, which is 27. So now we can answer the question, how many dogs at the show were small dogs? And the answer would be 27 small dogs. All right, example 4. A floor is made of green tiles and blue tiles. The ratio of green tiles to blue tiles is 7 to 13. The floor has a total of 3,000 tiles. How many of the floor tiles are blue? So here's another example where we're dealing with the total number of things. So I'm going to make another table here. And all we know for our table is the ratio of green tiles to the number of blue tiles. And then we're interested in the total in this particular problem. So let me write out my original ratio, which was the ratio of green tiles to blue tiles is 7 to 13. And that total would be 20. So what they told us is that the floor has a total of 3,000 tiles. So I'm going to put the 3,000 right here. So in order to determine the number of blue tiles, I'm going to have to figure out what do I need to scale by. So I'm going to see how many times will 20 go in to 3,000. So 20 will go into 30 one time. 1 times 20 is 20. Subtract, bring down a 0. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 5 times 20 is 100. Subtract and bring down. 20 goes into 0 0 times. So what this means is we're scaling by 150. So if the question asks me how many of the floor tiles are blue, I just need to multiply the 150 by 13. So 150 times 13. So 0, 3 times 5 is 15, carry the 1. That would be 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Put a 0. 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 5 is 5. 1 times 1 is 1. Add that all up. 2, 9, 1. So this tells me there are 1,950 blue tiles. Now, had they asked for red, I would have done the same thing had they asked me for green tiles, I would have multiplied 150 times 7. But since they only wanted to know blue, I just multiplied the 150 times the 13. All right, example 5. A barrel contains 60 gallons of water. Water leaked out of the barrel at a rate of 5 gallons every 3 days. At this rate, how many days did it take for all 60 gallons of water to leak out of the barrel? So what they told me is that the water was leaking out at a rate of 5 gallons every 3 days. And the question is, how many days did it take for all 60 gallons to leak out of the barrel? Since the 60 is gallons, I want to put it in my numerator. And we do not know the number of days. So what I need to do here is figure out what we need to multiply to scale 5 to 60. Well, 5 times 12 is 60. So if I scale the bottom by 12, 3 times 12 gives me 36. So it will take 36 days. All right. Example 6. The graph below shows the relationship between the amount Joe earned at his summer job and the number of hours he worked. If Joe worked 20 hours, how much did he earn? So this is an example of a problem where they didn't come right out and tell you the ratio, but they've given you all the information you need to find the ratio. So what I want to do is I'm going to look at my graph and I'm going to find what I call friendly points. Points like this, this, and this. And I'm going to label them. So this first point would be 2 hours, $30. This point would be 4 hours, $60. And my last point would be 6 hours and $90. All right. So if Joe worked 20 hours, how much did he earn? So what I want to do is I want to look at my number of hours on my graph, and I want to pick one that will scale up to 20 easily. Now, 6 will not go into 20 evenly, so I'm not going to use the 6, that ratio. Okay, 4 will scale to 20, and 2 will scale to 20. But I don't know if you remember what I said earlier. When I have 2 ratios to choose from to use in my proportion, I'll always choose the smaller one. So I'm going to use the 2 and the 30. So I'm going to set up a proportion and say for 2 hours, Joe earned $30. So for 20 hours, that would have to go in the numerator. How much would he earn? So looking at my proportion, I can notice that we had to scale this by 10. 2 times 10 gives you 20, which means I must scale my numerator by 10. So 30 times 10 would give me a total of $300 is what he would earn for working 20 hours. And that concludes today's lesson, problem solving with ratios and rates.